Good morning, everyone. How's it going? I am JB, head coach here at OMNIA Performance, and I'm joined today by my man, head of nutrition, Tom McClure. Tom, how are you, mate?
Good morning, sir. A pleasure to jump on with you. Spring has sprung where I am. Isn't it nice to wake up in the morning and it's not dark, it's not
Yeah,
wet.
it's just light. It's nice.
I think it puts everyone in a better mood, right? I know I've got a bit of a spring in my step. Excuse the pun.
Yeah, very good pun. Well done, mate. Yeah, no, I fully agree. It is a game changer, isn't it? Just getting up when the early alarm goes off. It's not pitch black. It doesn't feel like you're waking up in the middle of the night. It's nice. And if you're an evening runner like I am, it's nice to have some actual light in the evenings now as well, which is pretty good. Don't have to go out armed with my wanky head torch. It's good. It's all good. So I guess another thing that we should probably touch upon, it's as we record this is 25th of March. This weekend we're going on our Ardmay Scottish Highlands retreat with a bunch of the other Omnia guys and girls. So we've got all of the coaching staff and the other members of staff at Omnia, minus Kelly sadly, who's going on an adventure of her own this weekend. But we've got all of the staff, minus Kelly, as I say, she will be missed. And then we've also got a bunch of other athletes as well, haven't we? Which would be cool. Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to it. Although just before we went online, I was talking to Tom. The weather forecast does not look great, does it, mate? Not ideal.
Isn't there some kind of saying that there's no such thing as bad weather, it's just bad clothing, right? So whether it's cold or wet or both, skin's waterproof, isn't it? So we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Should be fine, shouldn't it? So yeah, we are, just for reference, for those of you who are uninitiated or unaware, we do these retreats a handful of times every year. And the athletes who come along are the ones who sign up for a year up front of working with us on a one-to-one basis. So as a nice little extra sweetener for them kind of having the faith and loyalty in us, we reward them with a little holiday, which is quite nice, isn't it? Pretty cool. So yeah, right. Anyway, on to the actual topic of the podcast. So today we're talking about all things marathon. So we're going to break it down into like a bit of almost like an FAQ format, aren't we? And just talk about some of the common pitfalls, issues that people have, tap into our own experiences as both athletes who've run marathons and also coached and guided our athletes through the nutrition side of things. Plenty to talk about. So I think a really good way of opening this, Tom, is you're training yourself for London at the moment, aren't you? How's your prep going? What are we, 5 weeks out, 4 weeks out?
We are it's 1 month and 1 day, so it is like 4 weeks out this Sunday at time of recording today. Look, I'll be really transparent. Prep's been tough, if I'm honest. I think January and February, with it being cold, dark, miserable, I struggled to really get in the zone with it and struggled to really what I would describe as like get up for it. Don't get me wrong, I ticked 90% of the sessions off. You look at my training peaks, it's green. I didn't bin much off, but I was really struggling to just kind of get in the groove for it, and I couldn't really understand why. I'm like, this is London Marathon, like this is bucket list stuff that I've got a place for. But as we've come into March, I don't know whether it's because the weather's got better or maybe I've started to see some of the benefit of the training that I've been doing. Things have just started to click a little bit more in process. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, and I think I said to you before we got on the call today, like I've just got to look after myself now over the next 3 or 4 weeks, because I feel like I could go out and run it this weekend if I had to. Like if chips were down, if the race got cancelled or moved, I could do it. But it's one of those things where like I've been through those kind of couple of weeks where like fatigue's been a bit high, I've been a little bit irritable, but that's all part and parcel of training for a marathon, right? Or even training for something you've never done before, where you're trying to push yourself to do something that you've never achieved. You're probably going to experience a level of fatigue that, yeah, it might be new to you as well.
Yeah, no. That's the thing, isn't it? It's like when you're doing these enormous events, with all of that training does obviously come some level of sacrifice and unpleasantness, tough times to get through. Like we said, like, you know, getting yourself through those winter months with the dark mornings and the fatigue that comes with all of the training. But I think like these big events, especially when you're trying to like chase a time, you need to kind of almost like have a level of acceptance and almost like respect in the event that these things need to be pushed through in order to get to the other side and ultimately, hopefully, get you what you want, or at least put you in the best possible position to get what you want. So
Yeah.
why don't we talk about some of the kind of like pitfalls, common issues that people have when they're prepping for a marathon. And I think perhaps for our own audience watching or listening, a lot of you guys would be perhaps coming from that more gym based background, like strength training background, and then starting to dabble into kind of more endurance sports. And quite often, like, a marathon is really seen as like a bit of a pinnacle, isn't it? Something to aspire towards, something to work towards. So let's talk a little bit about that. So Tom, with your experience, like, how did you find, because I know you would have strength trained for like a long time, how did you find it when you inevitably have to address the balance between strength training and running, and therefore perhaps back off on strength as like a sole focus? How did you find that? Did you find it difficult to kind of come to terms with? Yeah, what was your kind of experience there?
I think the first time I kind of worked up to a marathon distance, I think because doing more traditional squat, deadlift and bench and doing marathon training was all kind of new to me, because I'd come from a little bit more of a kind of rugby background and then done kind of CrossFit and functional fitness. I think I was quite lucky in the fact that I probably got some newbie gains from both sides of the coin, so the strength side and the endurance side. And I would say to a lot of people, like, if it is your first ever marathon, I honestly think the time potentially is irrelevant, because if you're just asking your body to run 42 kilometers, 26.2 miles, and probably a bit more if you're doing a big marathon, because like the roads are wide, you're going to be losing loads of weaving in and out. You will probably run more than that distance on the day. I think sometimes just getting through it and I guess your body being able to tolerate, one, the training load, and two, the event, to then put yourself in the position of like, right, if you want to go for another one, then you can probably lean more into potentially having a bit more of a running bias, which is what I've done this time. So I've followed the sub-3 marathon and strength program, which you can obviously get just off the shelf with OMNIA, or you can get it on subscription with us. Which does, I mean, look, it's still got strength training in it, but the strength training has reduced down as the running volume kind of goes up a little bit more. So it does lean into trying to get you to be a faster runner. And I think maybe psychologically, when I spoke about struggling with some of the training, I'm sat here thinking about it now, is like, is it because those running sessions were just hard and I just wasn't used to really pushing myself to try and run quicker? Because I've got a pretty decent zone too. Like, I've done a lot of stupid ultra endurance stuff where I'm like, stick it in eco mode and I can go all day. But like, fast twitch fiber and me are not friends. So this program has forced me to run faster. It's forced me to step outside that comfort zone. And yeah, I found it hard. Now I'm kind of like, say, reaping the reward of that a little bit and starting to peel back the layers of fitness. But I think, yeah, cycling, maybe back round to your question, like, because I could rabbit about all this kind of stuff for ages. But I think not being afraid to lean into picking one goal, and potentially, like I say, as long as I think if you can still hit 80% of your 1RM or 80% of your 3RM in a training block, you're never going to be that far away from it when you then, you know, you're not necessarily going to go marathon block to marathon block. You're probably then going to go do a different distance or spend a bit more time in the gym again. So I don't think we always speak about the idea of, probably never 12 to 16 weeks away from peaking in another discipline, which is a nice point to be in. So I think it's just realising that if you really want to push yourself and really do something you've never done before, then you might have to sacrifice either strength or either endurance to achieve the opposite goal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, drawing back to what you mentioned briefly there, I feel like that's one of the best kind of parts of being a hybrid athlete. I would say having that ability to, within a reasonably short space of time, be able to pivot back onto whatever else you want to do, just because you've always kept certain elements of your training always there. So, for example, even in like our marathon programs, you're not completely neglecting top end strength, training to increase your muscle mass, plyometrics, stuff of higher intensity running. So if you think you'll be doing some intervals in your program, which are kind of, say, 1 mile, 3K, 5K race pace, even though that's nothing to do with your marathon training, kind of there's no sort of like direct link there necessarily. So yeah, I think that's a really, really important thing to remember. And I think as well, kind of loosely drawing upon what you said there as well, people often do worry about like, oh, if I start to train for a marathon or any other sort of like endurance discipline, and like, oh, will all my muscle mass and strength go down the toilet? But you said yourself, like, training with heavy enough loads. Don't necessarily have to be like real top end, like 95% of 1RM and above, but training with, 75, 80, 85% of your 1RM, not necessarily going to failure. You can at the very least, maintain what you've got with reasonably little. You don't need tons of volume. You don't need super high intensity. So yeah, really, really important to remember. And also just to remember rather, that these things don't just work like an on-off switch. Like, yeah, you might be really deep into a marathon prep, so think it's more helpful to think of all of this as like something along a sliding scale rather than just a binary switch. So right now you're allocating more resources towards your marathon training, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're neglecting the strength side of things. And equally, what's going on under the hood, your body's just not ignoring all of the adaptations that are happening towards muscle mass and strength. It's just pushing a few more resources towards, your running ability, right? So yeah. Very, very important to remember. How were you kind of feeling, like, maybe opening the can of worms, but psychologically? So you'll see your Training Peaks calendar, and your eyes are probably first drawn towards that big old bastard of a run on a weekend, your long one. You're probably a bit more kind of up for that because you recognise that, right, I've got this challenge in a few weeks, month, so I really need to kind of hone in on that. How easy is it for you to get like up for your weight training sessions? Because that's something I personally found really difficult when I trained for London and tried to make a really good go of it. Is I had those strength sessions in the calendar and I was like, ugh. Like, I don't know, I found it psychologically very difficult to not be quite like one track minded, focused on the marathon. So yeah, asking you, man, how do you find getting up for it for the strength training side of things?
I think about kind of durability and robustness and all the things that I've ever done when it comes to the races that I've done, the challenges that I've taken on board. Like I would say I'm very probably like an above average athlete. I'm not really a high performer. I'm not very strong. I'm not very fit compared to very good people that we've got in our ecosphere. But what I am is quite resilient, and I think a lot of that comes down to like the strength training and the millions of lunges that I've done, and my posture and just having strong legs, I know has helped me. And then I just think about any marathon for me is a 32k warm up for a 10k fight. Mm-hmm. That's literally how I visualize a marathon. It's like earning the right to get to 32k, to be like, right, this is, it's going to hurt. Like, you're not. It's going to hurt, but it's being okay with that pain and knowing that you've put trust in the process, that your body is strong enough and capable enough to get you through it. And I think strength training has helped me do that. Touch wood, I've had no real major injuries in the past 4 years. I've always managed to, get through any event that I've tasked my body to. And I put a lot of that down to the strength training that I've done. I'm happy to admit I do not stretch, I do not foam roll, I don't really do any sort of form of like recoveries in the evening. I just sit on the sofa. Like, I probably making, like, I've got a couple of friends who are physios and osteos, probably make them shudder when they hear that. But like, I've never done it and I've got this far. So, I know I'm conscious of it now. Like, I turn 40 next year, so I probably need to do a little bit of stretching at some point. But in answer to your question, like, for me, every little session like compounds towards the bigger goal. And I feel like if I miss one session, the likelihood is, but like, oh, I missed that one, so I'll miss the other one. And if for ever any reason, like I've been busy or I don't know, with travel, like if I have missed a strength training session, when I get back in the gym again, I do feel a bit kind of rusty and not sharp. And I like that feeling of like really smooth, really good reps, particularly with things like back squat and deadlift and that, where you're in a really good groove. So like, I want to keep that touch point in place, even if I go in and just do one working set rather than 3. Like sometimes just going in and doing a minimum effective dose, 45, 50 minutes, get in and out and done. I feel like, again, I've got that dial on about 6 out of 10, so that when the marathon's done and I want to maybe turn that dial up again for the rest of the year and try and put some numbers on PRs potentially and things like that, then I know I'm in a good place to do it.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I mean, like, just drawing back to something that you mentioned there, I think this is a really common question that we get asked. Well, actually, do you know what? Not even just in marathon training. I'll broaden out this question for like more or less all of our training programs. You said it yourself, like you feel like you don't do any foam rolling, stretching and stuff. People often ask, oh yeah, should I be doing this? Because it's not in the program. But I would say, like, to your to the people who even are like physios, osteos, like show us the evidence that that works and is more beneficial than just making sure that your training is possible to recover from adequately in the first place. I kind of feel like a lot of these people who obsessed with like wearing their kind of compression boots or like obsessively foam roll, spend a lot of time doing it and a lot of time stretching, they're perhaps just not addressing the things that are making them feel quite so crap in the first place, which usually is maybe pushing their sessions a little bit too hard, not taking enough time to like, you know, just chill out on the sofa, eat plenty of food, get some sleep, maybe the odd nap here and there, perhaps wishful thinking for some. But you know, like all of that kind of thing, I think does work a hell of a lot more than just stretching and rolling and stuff. And I think as well, like Tom, I'd imagine you're pretty representative of most people at your age training for a marathon. Like you're a parent, you have a full-time job. I mean, how many hours a week do you think you spend training?
I probably do. So there's probably 5 days.
Sorry, I should say.
Sorry, go on.
For the marathon, I should say. How many
Yeah, I
hours?
mean, there's probably five days a week where the session is an hour. Sometimes the running session is a little bit longer than that, maybe 75 minutes. And then the weekend long run at the minute is between kind of 2 to 2.5 to 2 hours 45 potentially. So it's not a load of time. Like, and obviously when I've done ultras and things like that in the past, I'm used to bigger training volumes. So for me, this feels quite manageable. What has been challenging for me is the intensity of it, and something to maybe ask you about a little bit, kind of, you know, going under the hood and asking the why was like, why am I running quicker than my marathon pace in 2 sessions per week? Mm-hmm. And then actually when it comes to the long run at the weekend, where my mindset would just be like, oh, I'm going to spend loads of time at marathon pace. The longest I've run is like 9k at marathon pace. That's the biggest block that I've done at kind of tempo. So is it purely to kind of, are you trying to force me to run faster so that marathon pace feels a little bit easier? What's the kind of mechanical behind it? Is there a little bit of kind of mindset on it as well in terms of running quicker than you need to? I'd be keen to know why there have been points most weeks that I curse your name and feel like these sessions are absolutely beating me up. But hopefully there's proof of the pudding come race day, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everything that you said there would apply. Like, it's a very kind of like multifaceted answer, right? So the reason you would run faster or just at a different pace to marathon pace. So like you said, it makes you feel like marathon pace is like slower than what you're used to, which is obviously great. So you have that kind of in your head, you're like, oh yeah, this is slower than some of the training runs I've been on. This is fine. I can hold this. I can feel comfortable. So that's point number one. Point number two is basically like a good runner is often a good runner across like all distances, durations, speeds. So you want to kind of be able to have your training to make you have range, as it were. I think that's really important. Like, I know we're looking very much at the extreme elite end of the spectrum here, but look at athletes such as like Sifan Hassan. I think that's her name. She won at the last Olympics. I think or maybe world champ. She won like the marathon, the 1500. Like, it was crazy amounts of like events, and she's just a good runner. So becoming just generally a good runner will make you a good runner across all of these different disciplines. Then also, running at different intensities has like unique benefits, right? So if you're running kind of like just above or below threshold, it's going to make you better at kind of clearing a lot of those metabolic waste products and be able to sustain a pace. Running above threshold is going to hopefully make you push that ceiling of what your threshold is, which is really important. And also, like you said it yourself, remember when you were saying earlier, like you're going to be weaving around people, doing a bit of overtaking. It's often going to involve speeding up, slowing down. Like, unless you're kind of right at the front maybe of your wave, you're probably not going to be just holding a consistent pace the whole way. What if you hit a bit of an incline? So for example, I've run the New York Marathon. It is absolutely brutal. Like, you get parts where obviously you're trying to have like a finish time in mind, but you're met with a whopping great bridge where you have to run up and over it. So that requires you to put out a little bit more effort relative to the pace that you're going at that time, which would mean you need to tap into those different energy systems, everything that you've developed doing different paces. And I think it's just one final point. Imagine your performance is like a pyramid. Okay, so at the bottom, you've almost got like your zone 2, like aerobic capacity. How much power can you produce aerobically? And a lot of endurance runners think, or endurance athletes generally think, right, if I just really spend most of my time focusing on that, that's how I get my pyramid or my performance better and bigger. But what they often neglect is, if you go more towards like the top of the pyramid, you can make your pyramid bigger by dragging it up, by making the top of the pyramid a little bit more well developed as well. Slightly messy analogy, but hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, amazing. Really really insightful. And I think like I say, there's a physiological factor and a bit of a psychological factor as well.
100%.
And I'm a big visualizer. Like, I will be someone who I will be like, I've already started looking at it. I've started like studying the route. I've started like watching like, and YouTube's great for this, right? Because where people have got like, you know, GoPros, or people have got cameras in caps, or even those sunglasses that record now, like, you can watch parts of the route. You can get an idea for like, let's say, the inclines, the aid stations. So I can really begin to, like, when things are getting tough in those speed sessions, I'm like, imagine you're running down the mile. Imagine you're running past Big Ben. Imagine you're coming over Tower Bridge. Like, and it gets me through that next rep, and it gets that next session boxed off, and it turns green on Training Peaks. I'm like, okay, cool, another brick in the you know, another brick laid here, and that's how it all compounds together over time.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a good way of looking at it. A question for you: what session have you found hardest? Does one jump out? Or even difficult question to answer, you have to draw back. But like, what type of training session do you find the hardest? Like you mentioned about like ones you might be cursing my name on. Is there a particular theme?
But for me, I've never looked at anything that's anything that the distance is 800 to a kilometre, 1.2 kilometre repeats. Like running at that pace. So for me, so anything kind of 5k pace or 3 to 5k pace, it just doesn't come naturally to me. Like, I really have to put myself in a headspace to be a bit aggressive with it. Whereas like, there are obviously other challenges that come from like more of a you know, sustaining the kind of half marathon, 2.5 kilometre kind of intervals comes into my mind quite a lot. And then equally, it sounds silly, but sometimes, you know, when you have an easy run the day after a hard session, like getting out the door, you're a little bit achy, you're a bit sore, like that first kilometre is a bit like, oh, why am I doing this? But then at the end of that run, at the end of that 10 or 12k, I'm like, oh, it's just so nice to get out. And that's something where, as I've got fitter throughout this programme and my heart rate versus pace has improved, the temptation is in those easy runs is to like, oh, I feel really good here, I'm going to push the pace. So it's actually making sure that, like, apart from it looking good on Strava, I'm not really gaining anything by running quicker here. Like, actually just ease back, like make it super easy, like leave your ego at the door, keep the easy stuff easy, so that when I want to put the hammer down, I've got the energy, I've got the capacity to do so, and I'm not like just carrying kind of extra fatigue that I've built in a really silly way on that easy run, I would say.
Fair. No, it makes sense. And I think as well, getting out for your runs when you really don't want to get out for them is such an underrated thing as well. Like, just kind of hardening and toughening that psychological callus so that like you're just better at doing hard things. Like you said earlier, and likened a marathon to a 32k warm up followed by a 10k fight at the end. You want to make sure that you feel like you're up for that fight at the end, right? If you want to be in with a good chance of getting your goal time, your target time, you better make sure you're psychologically resilient enough to actually get stuck in and get in the ring, you know?
Yeah, and look, as well, that this is very personal, but trial and error, see how you go. I always think if you're struggling to get up for a session, one, like set a really hard start time. So often, me as a parent, and probably lots of other parents, or generally probably a lot of people, where we're fitting training in, like, it, particularly with running, where you're often starting from your front door, it's really easy to procrastinate. So I set myself a time of like, right, 10 minutes before I want to start running, I need to be ready to run. Kit on, shoes on, everything done, because, I don't know, something gets in the way and it delays you getting out the door and you start a little bit frustrated. So you want to start on your terms. So for me, it's like, right, if I'm going to start running at 5 a.m, 10 to 5, I need to be ready, kit on, good to go out the door. 5 o'clock, I'm walking out the door and I'm going. Secondly to that, like, more carbohydrates will help any sort of workout. So I've really switched to liquid nutrition pre-run, particularly when training in the morning, because one, helps with hydration, two, very, very minimal GI trouble, and three, I can take on board more fuel. So I can get kind of 80, 90 grams of carbohydrate in me 40, 45 minutes before I train, rather than previously I was doing like 30, 50 grams of carbohydrate. I've had a bit of toast with a banana, or I'd have something a little bit more solid that takes more time to digest. Whereas like just leaning on carbohydrate powder in 600-800 mils of water. And then third to that is I've actually gone bigger with caffeine around training, and then gone. I'm even drinking one now, going decaf for the rest of the day. So I'm trying to reduce my overall caffeine intake, so that when I use caffeine, I really get the benefit of it and have a bigger dose. So whether it's, if I want a coffee, that's minimum, but I'll probably use like a caffeine gel or a tablet or even a chew or something that's going to give me like 200 milligrams of caffeine. So again, talk about feeling up for it. When you do pull your caffeine back and then you go with a bigger dose, I think if you can drop your overall tolerance to it, I definitely notice as a bit of a caffeine habitual overconsumer, you then really notice the benefit. So more carbs, more caffeine, be a little bit stricter with your start time and your session time, and just remember, like, we get to do this. Like, I've got a place for London Marathon. Was it like 800,000 people applied to get in? Like, I'm so lucky to have a place. Like, I cannot miss this opportunity. So again, it's trying to flip it into a positive, isn't it? Where rather than it working against you, it's trying to put you in a scenario where you want it to work for you, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, mate, I've noticed a common theme in what you've been talking about today, like throughout the whole of this podcast, is that reframing of everything. Like, you got to spin these things into a positive, because otherwise, like I kind of feel like there's a correlation here. The longer the event and the bigger the event that you're training for, the more likely these negatives are to crop up, to be honest. So you better bloody start thinking about these things positively, right? And yeah, I think it's important. And just real quick to touch upon something else for the benefits of the listeners. You mentioned you're talking about caffeine intake just then. So for endurance sport, like what actually is the benefit?
One is alertness, focus, cognitive function, which can obviously be great if it's early in the morning. Two, can obviously improve that concentration during a session. So, you stay on pace, you stay controlled, you stay focused in the session. You can obviously use caffeine intra-workout as well. So it can really help, again, just maintain that energy and focus. Helps reduce RPE, which is the big one, I think, for a lot of people. Let's say when they get their dosing right, and when they, reduce potential kind of overall caffeine intake down across the day. Definitely hear good feedback on, let's say, that reduction of RPE, because it doesn't necessarily give you energy. I think that's a bit of a myth that caffeine provides energy. It blocks adenosine, so it blocks fatigue, let's say, and it's going to help where, yes, it might help in terms of get you a little bit fired up for the session, but actually from a performance point of view, like I say, it's going to help with that RPE, it's going to help with that alertness, that focus. So you can almost be a little bit tunnel vision potentially, and just narrow in and focus on the task in front of you, which is what we want.
Yeah, makes sense, man. No, thank you. Let's see. Other bits in terms of nutrition. So probably a bit late now because we're coming into like marathon season now. But let's say maybe someone's going to run a marathon later this year, or perhaps thinking about running one for next year. Earlier on, you were talking about carbohydrate intake. What are your kind of real simple, practical take-home tips for people who obviously have these marathon aspirations? Where should they start in terms of like perhaps the size of their pre-run meal? How close to their actual training run should they have the carbohydrate? What are your kind of thoughts there, man?
Great. Yeah, let's look at any either hard training session or long training session. And I really like the 1-by-1 rule, which is 1 gram of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight 1 hour before you run. So I'm 90 kilograms, so therefore trying to get close to 90 grams of carbohydrate in before I run. So if I'm doing a speed session, sub-threshold session, long run, that's what I aim for. Now, if you're brand new to eating pre-workout, then don't just jump straight in at that. Jump in at like 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrate before you run. So some nice, easy to digest carbs like a banana, a sports drink. You want to use a slice of white toast. If you want to use some honey, anything like that is great. And then week by week, you can just nudge that up by kind of 10 grams per week to find a spot that kind of tolerates for you. As I previously mentioned, liquid carbohydrate will always digest quicker. So you might want to have, let's say, a Lucozade Sport or a glass of fruit juice with some real food, or you might just want to go full liquid. Where that leads into really nicely is that for me, again, any marathon training block with nutrition is you want to be kind of working towards what are you going to do on race day. So on race day, you're going to need a high carbohydrate breakfast, and ideally we want to double that, because most major marathons start after 9 o'clock anyway, or you're going to be in a wave that starts after 9 o'clock, so you've got plenty of time to get a 2x2 breakfast in. So that would be 2 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body mass, at least 2 to 3 hours before you start running. So 90 grams, 90 kilograms I weigh, so 180 grams of carbohydrate. Again, you can think about practicality. Are you going to be at a hotel? Are you going to be traveling? Are you going to be on public transport? So this is where things like bagels can be great because they're really portable. You pair it with like some honey or some jam or a banana, add a sports drink to it. So you can begin to practice a smaller portion of that for, say, your pre-long run. And then probably around about this time now, for me, kind of 4 weeks out, where I've got 1 or 2 more long runs in, I'm going to really replicate that as best I can. So replicate having a high carbohydrate meal 2 hours before I run. I can replicate as well a little bit of carb loading and things like that as well, so that when you get to that race day itself, things feel a little bit familiar, right? You'll probably speak to your athletes about kind of similar kit and trainers, and make sure you've kind of road tested what we don't want chafing and bleeding or anything like that going on. Everything should be really watertight. So all you've got to do on the day is like just run. Like everything feels really, really familiar. So every little opportunity, I'd say we're stacking training bricks, aren't we? But we're also stacking nutrition bricks. So trying to make sure we're fueling sessions well, we're recovering from big training sessions, getting a nice high carbohydrate and protein meal in post long run is so important to kickstart that recovery process. If you're someone like me who struggles to eat a little bit, then again, liquid nutrition. 1 litre of chocolate milk, 600 calories, 90 grams of carb, 30 grams of protein, electrolytes, sodium, calcium. Anyone think I would be sponsored by Yazoo, but I'm really not. Like, I'm just a big advocate of like something that's really cheap and really easy to digest. And like, go do the literature. Go search on Google for the literature around chocolate milk, and you'll be amazed that it hydrates you like 275% quicker than water. So for me, it's just looking at like, fuel your training, support that recovery and adaptation post workout. And then over time, start to know your numbers that you want to hit in terms of number of gels per hour. Start to know what fuel that looks like what works for you. Trial and error some different products. Are you going to use anything they have on the aid stations from races? And then just practice it, right? Running is a skill, right? 1 foot in front of the other. Your nutrition is exactly the same. Do not leave it to like 4 weeks out to start thinking about, what gels am I going to use race day? Or what trainers I'm going to wear? What kit I'm going to wear? Like, you've probably got 12 to 16 weeks of a training block to kind of iron all these little kinks out, and like I say, go into race day feeling really confident, so you can just be tunnel focused down on the task in hand.
It really is the case, isn't it? Just doing all the simple things predictably and well. That's lit. I don't think I can really think of anything that's like particularly complex that needs to be done. Like, I don't know if you can. Like, it's all reasonably simple stuff, isn't it? It's like, look, your case in point, you're mentioning going down the offie and getting a bottle of chocolate milk because it works. You don't need necessarily any really expensive, fancy supplements with a perfectly engineered ratio because of like carbohydrate to protein or whatever, because it's already present in chocolate milk. It tastes nice, it's cheap, as you say. Yeah, happy days, right? And then other than that, it's literally just don't leave anything to race day that you haven't tried. And just rehearse, practice.
Yeah,
great, all good.
Yeah, and I think coming back round also to like your reframing point, I'm quite process driven. Like, I feel like I've learned about myself during this training block. I've learned about things that work, don't work. It's my first kind of big race as a parent. So there's been lots of things to kind of learn and navigate that I'll take forward. And the same with any medal that's hanging behind me here, any framed charity event top that I've got. Like, the outcome sometimes for me is irrelevant. Like, because I'm running for 3 and a bit hours, there is so much that can happen, right? I've seen people twist their ankle on a water bottle. I've seen, like, last year it was really warm at London Marathon. There might be things that just for whatever, it's the nature of the beast. You've got to turn up and run at that time. There might be things beyond your control that mean that on the day it just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
It just doesn't go to plan. But, like, you've not lost anything. Like, standing on that start line, you want to be able to ask yourself, have I done everything I can to put myself in the position to roll the dice today and see what happens? And if you say yes, then great. The outcome for me sometimes, yes, you might feel a bit flat afterwards. Yes, you might feel like I've missed the PB or whatever. But, like, there are bigger things at play here that I think can help you in then other aspects of your life too. And I think it's really important that social media obviously really drives us to want to be better and chase those PBs, which I'm all for. But, like, we are more than just a number. And we won't be like, there's always that saying of, like, 100 years time, no one's going to remember you anyway. So, like, make sure that like you're doing it for the right reasons. You're making the sacrifices for the right reasons, and then, like, pay it back afterwards. Like, reconnect with the friends and family you might have said no to. Go have the meal you might have said no to. Eat the chocolate cake that your nana made. Whatever it is, like, it's not all about race day.
No,
there's so much more to this than meets the eye. I think.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I would say as a coach, that's probably one of my biggest challenges, is getting people to be more process driven rather than purely focused on the outcome. Because ultimately, like, the race day is such a small proportion of the whole thing. You better make sure you enjoy the other 99% of what you've been doing and get something out of it. You know, it's not just about the not wanting to be derogatory about it, but it's not just about the medal that you get on the day. Like, if anything, it's just like it's a bit of sometimes wood, plastic, metal, whatever. Like, that's all it is. But really taking something away from everything that you said, like, you've learned about yourself along the way, and trying to draw something from it is very, very important for sure. What's your, just real quick, sorry, now we've said don't get too focused on the outcome, what actually is your goal time for the marathon?
So again,
I have to ask.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that this is something again that we do. I think with a lot of our athletes, like, I've got an A, B, and a C goal, right? So the B goal is to set a PB, right? Is to go sub 3:14. So anything under, so if it's 3:13:59, it's a PR. It's quicker than the last time I ran a marathon in a race, an official race scenario. So that is progress in itself, right? Running a marathon quicker than I did 2 years ago or 18 months ago. Obviously, the C goal is if things don't go to plan, then it's like, well, do you know what? It's get round with a smile on my face. Yeah. Like, enjoy it, be present. It's probably going to be the most stimulating experience of my life, which is the complete opposite to the Loch Ness Marathon, which is the last marathon I ran, which was just the calmest.
Low key, kind of.
So low key. Little pockets of support, but just nothing else along the way but until you get near the finish. So if anyone's ever looking for a low stim marathon, that's the one to do. A goal is to go sub 3:10. And that's where, like, I've kind of set all my kind of training paces off. Like, I've tried to set everything to go sub 3:10. So, again, for me, it's about, rather than previous me, I think would have gone out ahead of race pace and banked time and then hung on. Whereas, like, the person who I am now, and whether it's from doing this kind of training program, is, like, again, like, earn the right to push and potentially negative split it. So I think be conservative in the first 10k, be really committed but focused from kind of 10 to 30, 32k, and then I'll hopefully be kind of between that 3:10, 3:14 kind of pace on average, and then it's kind of right, it's 10k left, mate. Like, this is it. Like, hammer down.
Game on.
Let's go.
So what we are going to do now are a few little quick fire questions just to wrap things up. So I have got a list here that I've taken from kind of really common questions we've had on our circle community, on Instagram, all of that kind of stuff. We've got a good mix of both training and nutrition ones rather. So first question, how long should a marathon long run actually be? So I think that this is kind of like a real sort of common one, where I just recommend doing like a 20 miler. Like, literally have that as your last long run. It's close enough to the marathon distance without it taking, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, 20 miles is still a bloody long way, but it's not going to take you quite as long as trying to run like a full marathon in training. It's just not necessary. So I would say, yeah, 20 miles, 2 to 4 weeks out from the actual race day, I think is perfect. And then let's find a good nutrition one. Here you go, Tom. This will just be funny because it's going to trigger you. Can you do marathon training with a low carbohydrate diet?
I mean, you can, but it doesn't mean you should, right? Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah,
just
fine.
because you can doesn't mean you should.
Perfect. No, I agree with that. Cool. How do I manage having heavy legs? I think with regards to this, I think a big part of it is like we discussed earlier about the whole kind of thing of recovery is making sure your training is good in the first place so that there's not something so substantial to recover from. And then also just like, to be honest, sucking it up. Like this is something that if you want to train to be a hybrid athlete, you want to do a lot of strength training, you want to get your lower body lifts up, it's going to require some lower body stimulus. You are going to get sore. And of course, then your legs are going to get sore from running as well. And I think as long as you're not experiencing like crippling joint pain, I think it's just something to almost like embrace. And, you know, a bit like Tom's been saying the whole way through this podcast, reframe it. Like, you know, having slightly sore legs 99% of the time, I think is a small price to pay to be able to do all the stuff you want to do. I think is fair to say. Then, if I don't want to use gels, what are good options during my training runs?
Yeah, good question. I mean, again, any portable, easy to digest form of carbohydrate. So the other two options that are sports nutrition related would be a chew. As the word sounds, it involves a bit of chewing, so that can affect things like breathing rate. So better potentially around lower intensities, maybe not so good at higher intensity. Liquid nutrition is probably going to be the best option. I mean, if you look at the pros, like those that get drinks provided for them at aid stations, that's predominantly what they get. The pros don't take a lot of gels on board. They'll predominantly use liquid carbohydrate. You'll see them in kind of the pre-mixed bottles and all that kind of stuff for all the athletes. Practically, for us everyday athlete, that's a little bit more challenging. Like, do you want to run with a bladder? Probably not. Do you want to make up a load of bottles and leave them in your local park? You can do. At lower intensity, again, you can use a little bit of real food. If you want to use a banana, you want to use, you know, like a Rice Krispie square, any other kind of carbohydrate-based snack is great. I always think there will be some point that if you want to run a sub-4 hour marathon or quicker, you are going to need a carbohydrate option that provides easy to digest carbohydrate that is portable. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, that's going to be an energy gel.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is I feel like a lot of people ask this question because they're almost like they're scared about the processed nature of it. They think they're unhealthy. I think quite often that's what's fueling that question. But I think it's just really important, isn't it, to try and reframe like you're having these admittedly processed foods for good reason. Like they do the job perfectly. You're not sitting watching EastEnders Omnibus sucking on a Morton gel. You know, you're out for a run. Like it's literally what your body needs at the time, and it's a perfect portable option. This one's a good one because we can both answer this one. Should you try and lose weight whilst training for a marathon? So I think if you are going for like a good time, and obviously that's going to mean different things for different people, but if you have to really put a shift in your training and your goal isn't just to simply get around the course, I would say 9 times out of 10 no. But if you are going to try and lose weight while training for a marathon, try and lose the weight early and maintain that weight loss as you go in to the actual kind of meat and potatoes of the prep. Tom, over to you. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I would agree that the further away from your event that you are in a deficit, the better. So even if if you're really organised, have a lower volume training block before you start your marathon block, and I think that's the easiest place. See it as an off season. That's the best place to make body composition change. What you don't want to do, like say, is run that deficit too deep into a marathon block. Look, we've seen some really interesting trends where, and look, again, you only have to look at elite levels of sport. Like marathon running is a little bit different, but I think if you look at cycling and if you look at track and field in particular, athletes are getting heavier and they're getting faster. And I think, look, to be a sub 2:45, sub 2:30 marathon runner, yeah, do you know what? Every little ounce of fat mass is going to make a difference. But like, if you want to run a marathon with a 3 or a 4 in it, but like, but you still want to go to the gym as well. Like, actually, being strong and capable and robust, and then being able to do the next thing for me again is more important. Last little caveat to that is I am currently weighing the heaviest I have been in since I can remember. I'm currently tipping the scales at 90 kilograms, so it's probably about 5 kilograms heavier than I ran my last marathon at. But I've just set pretty much an equal half marathon PB without racing a half marathon. So proof's in the pudding, right? I'm probably going to set a marathon PB at my heaviest weight. It does show that actually, like, functional mass, lean muscle tissue, it has that made me stronger and faster than potentially like trying to get leaner and be in an energy deficit.
Cool. Yeah. We're not doing very well at these quick fire questions, are we?
No, we're not. Sorry, mate. Sorry.
It's all good. We just love it. That's the thing. We just love it. Next, I'm only teasing. It's all good. Then the next one, is carb loading actually necessary? So I hit you with another nutrition one.
Yes, 100%. Why wouldn't you start the longest, hardest journey of your life with an absolute full tank of gas? Simple as that.
Perfect. Back to the quickfire. Like it. Then, let's see, a good training one. Oh, this is cool. Are recovery runs actually useful? So I would say recovery runs are like, they're just a label. Like, at the end of the day, performing actual like training, you know, a recovery run implies you're not just going for a walk. A recovery run implies there's some actual training, there's some mileage, there's some extra stress on the legs. I would say it's purely a name rather than anything that's actually going to help you recover. Like Tom said earlier, you're probably better off getting on the sofa and chilling, having something to eat, go to bed a bit earlier. That would do much more for your recovery than going for a recovery run for recovery's sake, I would say. And then let's do one more each. Let's find a good one to finish on. Why am I so hungry when marathon training?
Because your energy demands are high, and then 2, you have potentially underfueled the work and not adequately refueled afterwards. So they're the 2 big pillars that if you fix how much you eat, so one, you might be unintentionally just underfueling the big training days or just even your training week, and or where I see people then eat more of their calories in their day around their training sessions, they feel better away from training because they're kind of, the energy balance across the day is more in line with where it should be.
Perfect. And then one last question. How do you know if you're doing too much running? So I would say for this, it's first of all a planning thing. So if you're running significantly more than you're used to, you may be on borrowed time for, you know, if it's not getting injured or picking up niggles, it'll be just kind of burning yourself out with it. Like, you want to steadily ramp up the training stress rather than just like throwing yourself in. Like running a marathon, I've personally found, and Tom, I don't know if you're the same, I know plenty of my athletes have, it's a very kind of like almost like emotive thing. Like, it's a really big deal and it's really easy to get caught up in the excitement, whether like you're fundraising or you're telling all your friends and family about, I'm doing this big thing, and you have a London Marathon, it's enormous, etc., etc. It's so easy to get caught up in it all, just throw yourself into like a high mileage plan, and 9 times out of 10, sadly, that's not going to end well. So I think in order to tell if you're running too much is literally just to say like, right, what was I doing last week? Try and bump up the volume by like 5 to 15% each week. Obviously towards the lower end if you're already running a lot, towards the higher end if you're already running not too much, so you actually have some meaningful jumps each week, and just take it from there. Have a planned deload every kind of like 4 to 6 weeks. Every now and again, have a little bit of a time trial to see if you're progressing. So on the program that Tom's doing, off the top of my head, there's like a 5k time trial in there, I believe, or a lactate threshold test occasionally just to recalibrate everything. I think that's a really good way of working it out. Cool. I reckon it's a good opportunity to wrap it up there, Tom. So before we do indeed wrap things up, any final kind of points from you?
No, I just think, again, like, remember, fatigue, external stressors, there's loads of plates that you're probably spinning when you're trying to run for a marathon, not just the training itself. So cut yourself some slack. It's all about, again, just that consistency, compounding, picking your battles physically, mentally, and trying to enjoy the process along the way.
Cool. No, mate, I think that's perfect. Great way of looking at it. Well, mate, I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but on behalf of the listeners as well, very best of luck with the last of your prep, and hopefully you get what you want to get on race day. You get that A goal, fingers crossed. Even though, of course, it's not about the outcome, obviously. Just a caveat, of course. Cool. Right, we'll wrap it up there, guys. So thank you very much for listening. Hopefully I gave you a bit of an insight into how we approach things when we're trying to simultaneously improve your strength and your endurance, specifically to marathon running. And gives you a bit of an insight as to what it looks like, in the real world. Like, Tom, as he said, he's a parent, he works full time. It's cool to see like what this kind of training looks like for a quote unquote real person. So Tom, thank you for the insight, my man. So if you're wanting to get stronger, build some muscle, improve your running, your cycling, your triathlon, your high rocks, whatever it is, we've put together a hybrid training guide. So the download link for that is in our show notes. It's absolutely free. Just gives you a good idea of how to structure things training wise without just simply guessing and hoping for the best, really. So as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a mate, stick on your Instagram story, whatever you like, tag us, and we'll catch you in the next one.